This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome everybody. This is the 2nd of August high-risk recurrent advanced call, and I was just explaining why we record, and that is because we get now somewhere between 45 and 70 men each week, or people each week, excuse me, who like to listen in later. I think some are probably people who attend and they go back and re-listen. Some are people who cannot make the meeting, but we have a fairly robust attendance through our YouTube channel. You can get notification by signing up to our YouTube channel or signing up to our blog, one or the other, or both, and then you'll get a notification when it gets posted. If you sign up to our blog, there's a lot of other interesting stuff that that we're putting out right now. In fact, Jerry Deans, who was on the call last week, just sent me a couple of podcasts that we will be blogging related to some of the work he does around grief, and I think his wife Patsy is doing a podcast on taking care of people with advanced cancer. So, Arnold, I know that you are new. Welcome. We're delighted to have you here, and we will talk to you. And Tom Cinquegrandi, we're also delighted to have you here. Len is on the phone. And what we normally do with our new folks is if they're comfortable, and only if they're comfortable, we ask them to give us some background on their situation, and then we open it up to the whole group. And if you've got any specific questions, we'll answer them. And if you don't, you're guaranteed there are going to be some people who have opinions on what you're doing in this group. So you're always going to get a response. So I think, let me just check one thing very, very quickly. I think I might have put Tom Cinquegrandi in my, oh, I should tell you, I do keep notes of what you say myself. And so when people come in that we haven't seen for a long time, like Mark Thompson, and I ask them questions and they think I have a memory like an elephant, it is not true. It's just that I kept notes in the first place so I can go back and don't sound like a total idiot. So since Tom Cinquegrandi has...
Sorry?
Was that somebody who wanted to say something?
I thought you were asking me a question. I'm sorry.
No. Tom, since you've already had a conversation with one of our co-moderators, Len Sierra, why don't we start off with you, and then, because he's maybe even asked you some of these questions, and then maybe it'll give Arnold a sense of how we go about doing things. So what I'm going to do is just ask you a bunch of questions, just so that we can get a good picture of what's going on with you. So how old are you, Tom?
72.
72. And you live in Sarasota, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, Sarasota, Florida. Home of the circus, right? Winter home of the circus.
Formerly the circus, they're gone.
Formerly the circus, that's right. And when were you first diagnosed?
In 2000, the year 2000.
Wow, okay. And now we're going to see if you're the elephant here. Do you remember what your Gleason score and PSA level were at the time of diagnosis?
The Gleason score was 8. The PSA went from 2 to 4, and that's what led the doctor to do a biopsy, because it doubled in a year.
It doubled in how long?
1 year.
In 1 year. Okay, 2 to 4 in 12 months. And that biopsy that you had, do you remember anything about it? How many cores they found positive?
No, I don't. And I had the slides and I can't find any of it, so I don't remember.
Don't worry. So where was your first port of call in terms of doctors?
I went to a urologist here locally, Dr. Treeman, and I also got a second opinion at Moffitt Cancer Center and one other opinion locally.
Okay.
That was back in 2000.
Right. And all from urologists?
Yes.
And what did they recommend?
Well, at the time, the recommendations were seeds, radiation, combination radiation and surgery. I elected the surgery at that time.
Okay. And I'm assuming that they did some scans and they were negative at the time. Is that right? Would that be right?
No, we did the only scan that I remember was a bone scan
Yeah.
at the time. And then from there it was surgery after that.
Okay. Yeah. But they did a bone scan before surgery.
That's correct.
Right. And that was in 2000. And what were the results of that?
Well, they removed the prostate and some lymph nodes. And then 6 years later, my PSA was rising and they did a biopsy and I ended up getting 40 treatments of radiation. That was in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I've been clean as a sheet except for the last 7, 8, or 9 months. And they noticed my PSA was rising. And I did a CT scan. I did an Oxyman PET scan in January, and my doctor at the time suggested that I go to UCLA for a PSMA test,
Yep.
which I did do in May, and
Okay.
it located 4 areas, 2 lymph nodes down around the hip area, and 2 ribs, a left and a right rib. My PSA this year has gone like from since December 0.93 all the way up to 0.153 was the last PSA.
So hold
And
on. Let me say that. So that's 0.93 up to 1.53. Is that right?
that's correct, since
Okay.
December.
Okay. And back in 2006, how high did your PSA get before they started the IMRT?
Oh, geez, I don't remember, but it was moving, and I had 40 radiation treatments.
Okay. And that held it down until it started to creep up in 2020.
Right, the end of 2020. There was movement.
Okay. And have you ever been on any type of hormone therapy?
I just started 2 weeks ago.
Okay. What do they put you on?
Biclutamide daily, a pill,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just had my first shot a week ago, and it
Yeah.
was Trelstar Mixjet, something like
Yeah.
that.
And are they taking you off the bicalutamide now?
No, no, I'm going to do both, and then I'm going to start radiation of the lymph nodes, 25 treatments the end of this month.
Okay. Now, who is at this point, you've gone back in 2020, and what sort of doctor did you go back to? Who's your lead doctor?
Uh, Actually, I probably have two. A urologist by the name of Dr. Barzell, Winston Barzell. It was his
Yeah.
group. It was his group. Dr. Treeman did the surgery, but he has since passed away. So I'm with
Okay.
Dr. Barzell, and in conjunction with him, I've got a hematologist and oncologist
Yeah.
that I meet every other week at Moffitt, and he's given me guidance. And then a radiologist, Dr. Larry Silverman, who did my radiation 20 years ago. 16 years ago.
Which is the doc at Moffitt?
It's Dr. Chadha, Chadha.
Chadha.
That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, I was just looking at those guys yesterday, and I have them. I just want to pick up a list. I just want to check. I don't think Chadha is a GU medical oncologist. And there are a bunch of GU medical oncologists at Moffitt, plus you have a really great one in Sarasota. Let me just bear
Who's
with.
a great one in Sarasota?
Dr. Elizabeth Guancial.
Yes, I've heard her. Yeah.
And we like her. Len loves her. Len?
Yes, she's a medical, she's a GU medical oncologist in downtown Sarasota, Tom, and she's fantastic. Great pedigree, you know, Harvard, Dana-Farber, Mass General, the works.
Well, that's great. I think I know when I first got the results of the PSMA, Dr. Silverman brought it to a tumor board at Sarasota Memorial Hospital, and she was part of that.
Yeah. Somebody just wrote me, a gentleman just wrote me last week who was looking for a doc in northern Florida, and which is the reason why I was looking last night at the Moffitt docs. And I said to him that, you know, if it were me, she's the one who I would probably I would probably select. So I'm just looking here at the medical oncologists. There's now the guy you're seeing, is it Chahoud? Chahoud?
No, it's Chadha.
Okay.
He's relatively new. I think he's
Right.
relatively new.
Well,
How I got him, the one I wanted to see, I couldn't. They were all on vacation, and they assigned me to him.
Okay, well, I think the big issue is whether Chahoud is a GU medical oncologist, but we'll get back to that. And frankly, I would trust Len, and I'd go with Guancial because she's good and she's got a great pedigree. I mean, she trained with Dr. O, she was at Dana-Farber, couple of other really good hospitals.
How do you spell her? How do you spell her name?
Guancial.
She actually pronounces it Guancho.
Guancho. Okay, and if you, this is for everybody, especially if you're new. There's a chat window in the top corner. It's a little box, like a question mark box. And if you look in there, we post things in there, such as links to doctors. And I am just about to put in a link to Elizabeth Guancho. Here we go. Copy. And I'm putting it in right now. Yeah, so Herb has already looked up Chadha, and Chadha is not a medical oncologist, but he's not a GU specialist. And they do have GU specialists at Moffitt. So here's Guanxiao right now. I just put her in the chat box. And then there's a lady who lists herself as a GU specialist called Chatwal. There's a guy called Zhang, Z-H-A-N-G, who considers himself to be a GU. There's Chahoud, who considers himself to be a GU. So there's no shortage of GU there's no shortage of GU medical oncologists there. And so it sort of bothers me that they push you through. Oh, there's another one here, Jamil, a woman, Gigi Jamil. So there's no shortage. So they should not be pushing you on to somebody who's not a specialist. Yeah, Guanxial is not with Moffitt. You're right. We didn't say she was. She's with Florida something. What do they call themselves, Len? Florida what?
Florida cancer specialist. She's at SMH, Sarasota Memorial Hospital, because Moffitt is over an hour further north.
Okay. So even though she's not with Moffitt, I think I would rather see her. And if I had to go to Moffitt, I would choose Chahoud, Chahoud. I'll put his link right now in the chat window too. Have you actually seen this guy, Chadha?
Yes, I have.
What did you think of him?
To me, he's young. He seems like he's relatively new with Moffitt, because when I looked him up, he's only been there less than a year, I believe. He comes from New York. He's a personable guy. He seems knowledgeable. Easy to talk to.
Well, I think you can, if you do want to stay with Moffitt and you don't want to see Guanxial, I would say, look, you want a GU med-onc, and he is not specifically a GU med-onc. That's not his training.
Well, I'm going to be meeting with Dr. Silverman, who had spoken to Dr. Guanxial about a month ago on my behalf, and I'm going to have a meeting with him next week, and we're going to discuss that and a few other things going forward.
Okay, well, so I think, one last question for you. Have you done any genetic testing?
No.
No. Okay. So do you have any family history of any type of cancer?
Oh, yeah, my father had lung cancer. That's the only history I know of.
Okay. So it is standard now and recommended by NCCN that everybody with more advanced prostate cancer is tested for an inherited mutation. So you need to raise it with one of your docs to make sure they do a testing to make sure you haven't inherited anything. Okay. There is another type of testing they can do too. At this point, it might be a little premature. See how you respond. The other thing is that probably in a case like yours, we wouldn't be leaving you on, a lot of docs would not be leaving you on bicalutamide. They'd be introducing a stronger drug like abiraterone or enzalutamide.
Well,
and so,
to interrupt you for 1 minute, Dr. Chadha said he wanted to get me on the new generation of drugs, and I think those were the ones. But Dr. Barzell is the one who started on. He's my local urologist on the bicalutamide. But my conversations with Chadha, he wanted to go in a different direction. He said, "I want you to get you on the new gen."
right.
Listen how you do with these right now.
Right. So the first thing is that your care at this point should not be run by your urologist, and that's one of the reasons why. Because the urologists just aren't up to date. And so you have to decide who your quarterback is going to be, and it either needs to be the Moffitt doctor or Dr. Guanxial. And you figure. But it's time to say goodbye to Dr. Barzell, and that's not where you should be getting your Trelstar injections. Dr. Barzell is not going to be that happy because they make a lot of money off of the Trelstar injections. They love to give them, but he's not the right guy, and he's not on top of it. And he like Dr. Chadha said, that's not where you should be right now. You should the The protocol is either abiraterone or a more advanced type of bicalutamide, of which there is some choices. So that's really what I would say. Tom, do we have your email address, or does Len have your email address?
Yeah, Len should have it.
Yeah, I do, Rick.
Okay, would you send it over to me, or put Tom in the yeah, send it over to me. No,
Yep.
either way, or put
Okay.
him in the database.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll make sure you get. So let me, with all of that, let me throw this open to, I think we've got all the information. Who would like to talk to Tom? Don't all shout at once.
I'll start and welcome Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If
Dr.
you'd like to
John.
continue with us, I think you'll get a lot of good advice, and we'd love to have you. It's always exciting to see somebody that's 21 years out, something that many of us hope to accomplish someday. So welcome to the group.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would also say welcome, Tom. I'm glad you made it to ANCAN since our last telephone discussion. This is Len Sierra, by the way. And I just want to address something I may have missed because there's a comment in the chat from Larry Fish saying, if PSMA shows spread to the bone, why plan to radiate lymph nodes again? I didn't, is that what the PSMA showed? What, you do have bone metastases?
Yeah, well, this was a strange one. When I got the results, showed 2 lymph nodes, and it said suspicious on a left and a right rib. And Dr. Silverman contacted the radiologist at UCLA, and it was of their opinion that could have been maybe a false reading. It could have been inflammation. So the way I elected to proceed was we're going to radiate the 2 lymph nodes and monitor the ribs either with a follow-up MRI and see how all these hormonal therapy works out. And they want to do that after I've had the radiation, go take an MRI and monitor what's going on. My biggest concern when they said the lymph nodes, since I already had radiation, I questioned, can you do it again? And the response was that although I had previous radiation, these lymph nodes were not in the area of the prior radiation. But even Moffitt said to be cautious with the radiation in the ribs because of the vital organs, meaning the heart and the lungs and so on, are in that area. And I've been questioning. I said, well, if I don't do anything with the ribs, how am I going to monitor this? And they said, well, we'll do an MRI in a month or two. So
Yeah, and since you're going to be on ADT for a while, if those rib lesions disappear while you're on ADT, then you know they were true metastases. But if they don't change, likely that they're just some sort of sclerotic bone tissue. You may have, had a mild hairline fracture of a rib. I think the ribs are often not. Rib lesions are often not definitive for an actual metastasis.
right, and that was the concern Dr. Silverman had. That's why he wanted to have a conversation with UCLA, because they were very indecisive when they said ribs. It was like they used the term suspicious. They
Yeah.
couldn't definitively say it. Then Dr. Barzell wanted me to get an MRI of the ribs, but by the time I could get the MRI, I was already on the hormone therapy, and they decided, well, he's already started that. It would be useless to go get the MRI. Let's wait until after the radiation and how all this other stuff is working out.
Do you know what the value, the SUV value of those lesions in the rib? And I'm wondering if anybody else knows about MRI and evaluating bone metastasis. I always thought that that really wasn't the way to pick that up or to get a good view of the bones.
Yes, Mark, this is Dennis Correa. You know, I also had the PSMA at UCLA, and that's how in the report, and the radiologist report, they describe these different areas as moderate to intense focus, or let's see, and then there's a indeterminate findings, and some will fall into that category. So Tom, do you know what, and do you have your report handy?
Yeah, I'll dig it up, but I remember that the wording was suspicious. It was very, and that's what I questioned because it was so minor. And when they use that terminology, suspicious, even Dr. Silverman questioned that.
Yeah, they'll give you an SUV value for each one of those.
All right, I'm gonna try to
Let
find
me
the
ask you a
report.
question, Tom. You said you did an Axumin scan followed by the PSMA scan, is that right?
That's correct.
Did the rib lesion show up on the Axumin scan?
No, the aximum didn't even show the lymph nodes. It
Okay,
showed,
and what was your PSA when you did the Axumin scan?
it was probably 1.2, 1.3, somewhere in that range.
Okay, so nothing showed up on the Axumin, but the other showed up on the PSMA. I mean, it is unusual to do radiation therapy to the ribs. They usually don't do that because the target is so skinny and the ribs are fragile.
Right.
So they usually don't do that. So, you know, what I could see them saying is, let's target the two lymph nodes and let's see if we can nail the ribs with hormone therapy. But I would say that then you really need the proper hormone therapy. And if it were me, I would not be accepting bicalutamide along with the Trelstar. But we've had that conversation. I'm bearing in mind the time here, so I think we've given you the pointers and some things to talk about with your docs. But I think the biggest takeaway today is it's probably time to move on from Basel and to go to and to choose your genitourinary medical oncologist. And like we say, normally we would say go to a center of excellence, but we, based on Len's recommendation and the recommendations he got from his main doctors, we think Guanciale is probably as good as you're going to find anywhere in southern Florida. And if not, you have choices, several choices. Somebody suggested Pow-Sang, but Pow-Sang is a urologist. He's not a medical oncologist. But there are other names there, Zhang and Chahoud. The reason we recommend, I think I've known one guy that went to Zhang. We've known a couple that went to Chahoud and they liked him. And then we got another one with CH Chatwal. So, you know, we got too many CH people, and Chadha. They need to get people with more diversity of names at Moffitt, I think, so that we can, oh, yeah. So anybody else have anything that they would like to say to Tom? Tom, do keep coming back. As you can see, we can provide some pretty good information for you. We'll get you on the database. The next meeting will be next Tuesday, the 10th, with Peter in charge.
You know, I have that PSMA report. I just pulled it
Okay,
up.
well, hold on to it till next week. Nothing's
Okay.
going to change. and we'll talk to you about it next week.
Marilyn.
Hey, Rick, before I forget, I wanted to mention, you'll appreciate this. Dr. Guancho shared with me that she's very good friends with Alicia Morgans, and that when they go to ASCO conferences, they usually share a room.
Oh, really?
You're known by the company you keep, right?
Yeah. Well, that's huge for us, because we love Alicia Morgan. She's just moving from Northwestern to Dana-Farber. And what that tells me is if she doesn't know what to do, she's going to pick up the phone and say, Alicia, what do I do with this situation?
Yeah.
And so that's another really good reason. Next Tuesday, Peter Kafka will be back. Now, some of you may have noticed we haven't seen him for a couple of weeks. He blames that on his social schedule. And in fact, today, he's gone to the racetrack because he had tickets at the racetrack for a concert. So I told him to back the trombones for me, $10 each way. And we'll see if the trombones come in. If they don't, I guess I'm out $20. But Peter will be back next week. All right. Anything else for Tom before we move on? All right, Arnold, you got the lay of the land, man. We thought we give you a little step up since Tom had a conversation with Len, and I don't think you've talked to anybody. So, how did you find us, Arnold?
Oh, I've been communicating with Mark.
Dr. Mark Perlow?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's great. And Dr. Mark's on the call, so that is terrific. How old are you and where do you live?
I'm 54 and I live in Boca Raton, Florida, Southeast Florida.
Okay. And how do you know Mark?
I was in the chat room or some Inspire, and I had asked a question. Yep. He responded to it.
Okay. We go back a long, long way with Inspire, right, Len?
Very long, yes. That's how you and I met.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's how I found Len. 2013 was that, Len?
14. That's when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
And that's where I met you and Dom.
That's right. And I go back about 4 years more to about 2010. So we have a long heritage, and we're delighted to welcome you here. When were you first diagnosed?
Officially May of this year.
Okay. And what was your Gleason score and your PSA at diagnosis?
I have 4+3 confined to the right apex. It's supposedly small volume. I did a targeted and systematic biopsy with Dan Sperling.
Right.
Put 5 needles in the target. He put 12 all the way around the other parts of the prostate. The 5 needles in the target more or less came out either 3+3, 3+4, or 4+3, and the rest were benign. So depending on the way you look at it, I'm either 1 out of 12 cores or something greater than that, depending on how you score that. My PSA was 5 point, I believe it was 5.3, or depending if you look at the 4K score, it was 7.86. I don't know if those are analogous. My most recent one since May is 6.9. And I've been all over the place. I've been to a lot of folks, a lot of urologists, I went to Moffitt, I went to the Proton Center. I'm in a vortex here, and I need to get out of the vortex and either do something. Go ahead.
Let me stop you right there. Only because if you are a 4+3, and if your PSA is at 6.9 right now, and did they see any extracapular extracapsular extension when they did the biopsies?
No, they did not. They didn't see it there. They didn't see it in the MRI dates back to February 15th. It was
Okay.
a MRI. They did not.
Here's what I'm going to suggest, because this is the high risk recurrent and advanced group. And thank God you are not high risk, you're intermediate risk. And you should be in the group that meets next Monday that Peter Kafka and Joe Gallo moderate. Joe, do you just want to step in for a minute and do a quick introduction here and see if we can get Arnold to the right place?
Well, the key thing is we need to get Arnold's email address.
Yeah, sure.
And you could, if you would just put.
I don't know the protocols, but I'm reaching the point of anxiety where I can't even function. I mean, can someone just sort of help me understand what I'm doing, or do I have to wait till next Monday?
Well, the reason we ask you to wait until next Monday is because all the men in this call have much higher risk disease, and it's not fair on them because they've been through that. And
I'm new to this, so it's all very, very, very scary at this point.
No, we understand. I tell you what, though, maybe Joe, would you be willing to have a little chat with Arnold before next Monday?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to send me your information to joeg@ancan.org.
Joe G
@ancan.org.
I'll send you all my contact information. Thank you.
And we can get some preliminary discussion going before Monday.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Arnold, you're really welcome to stay on this call, but you're going to hear stuff that you might not want to hear. And that's why we don't put the intermediate men on this call, because we're talking about chemotherapy and advanced treatment, and hopefully you're never going to deal with any of that. That's our hope. And that's why we separate the groups.
Understood.
So if you drop off, you stay as long as you like, drop off. You can send Joe a message in the chat window and he'll get you into the system.
That I don't know how to do. I got to send an email, but I don't know how to send something in the chat room.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay. Well, we'll teach you. You'll learn how to use the chat window because people put great information in the chat window right the way through the meeting. But yes, of course, that's fine. Yes.
Hey, Rick, this is Paul. I live up the street from Arnold. It might be good for us to have lunch sometime.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Where are you? I'm in West Boca.
I'm in Lake Worth. Put in the chat window your email address, and I'll send you an email.
I'd love to. I don't know where this chat. In
the upper right-hand corner, there's a little circle with an arrow coming out of it. Click that, and then at the bottom you can.
Right.
Of the upper right.
Upper right, I see a microphone, a video.
You see where it has people, says 41 people?
To me, it doesn't say that. It says 13 with a circle. Is that
It's the middle icon. It's the middle one.
Yeah, and it looks like a cartoon, text box.
I bet
Yes, Arnold, it's the one that says 13 because that's all the messages that are in there.
Okay, so who just spoke to me now?
This is Bill. The one that says 13 is the chat window. If you click on that, it'll open a chat window.
And
the unread messages are in the chat window right now.
I'm sorry, who said they live in, they're my neighbor?
Yeah, what?
Paul. Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
I'll put my email address in there right now also.
I'll send you mine right now. I figured it out. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Don't worry.
Everybody's got to get started.
Okay. So, and now that you're in there, if you click on where it says everyone at the bottom, you can find Joe G and Paul Frieda. If you don't want it to be public, you can send it to them privately. But, and Joe has probably we'll put Joe in that chat window right now. Joe G @ancan.org.
There. It's there.
It's there. Oh, yeah, it is there. You beat me to it. Okay. All right. So I don't think anybody else is new. We've got a couple of names that we haven't seen for a long time, but I don't think we got anybody else who's new. So I am going to do the roll call right now and see who would like some time today. And we're starting off with, I'm just, as I say this, I'm looking to see to make sure I put Carl Foreman's name down. I did, but it's a long way down the list, Mr. Foreman, because you didn't get on until after 5:05. So don't be upset with me if I don't get you to you till late. Pat Martin.
I'm good.
Okay. Dr. John.
Got a question, yes.
Okay. Gao Shan, are you in Panama or are you in Portland? Is Gao Shan still with us? Yes. You're muted, right? There you go.
I'm in Panama.
In Panama. Oh, we got somebody from Panama today. Would you like some time?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. And I owe you an email. I'm sorry. It's there. I will get to it. I'll
It's okay.
respond
I
to
just
you.
wanted to give you an update.
Well, why don't you give everybody an update? All right, we'll come back to you and you
Okay.
can give everybody a quick update, okay?
Yeah, okay. I'll wait for you to call me again.
I'll call you again. Mr. Nathanson,
Thank you.
anything for you today?
No, thank you. Nothing tonight.
Okay, Ted, anything you'd like to talk about?
Rick, nothing tonight. Thank you, sir.
Joel, anything you'd like to talk about?
No, thank you. Not tonight.
Tomorrow I got a window, bro.
Larry Fish, anything for you tonight? Where's Mr. Fish gone?
Trying to unmute.
Okay.
Hi, thank you, and not tonight, Rick.
Nothing. Okay. Dennis Correa, anything for you, sir?
No, thanks, Rick.
Bruce Bocian, you have an update, I know.
Yeah, I'll give you an update.
Thank you very much. Jeff Marchi, anything for you?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Rusty, anything for you?
Well, I'm good. Peachy keen.
Good, good. Mr. Gallo, Captain Gallo, have you started your treatment yet?
Well, I started the ADT with the Orgovyx.
Okay, well, then you can give us an update. Jim Marshall, anything for you?
Negative.
Okay. Herb, anything you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Dennis McGuire, anything for you, sir?
Hi, Rick. Nothing new. Thanks.
Okay. Mark Thompson, welcome back. Would you like to give us a little update? Can't see you anymore, but I know you were here. Are you with us, Mark? Okay, we'll move on and we'll figure out Mark. I'll put him a tick and we'll figure out. Les, I saw Les left us, but then are you with us or did you come back, Les? I think he must have left us. I don't see Les either. Jim Barnes, anything for you?
Hi, Rick. I'm good. I'm just between appointments, waiting for my next readings.
Okay. Alan Moskowitz, anything for you tonight?
No, thanks, Rick. I'm okay for now.
Great. Phil Snyder, anything for you tonight?
No, sir.
Is that yes or no? Sorry. No. Okay, you're coming across muted. That was why. Tom Swartzel, anything for you?
Hi, Rick. Yeah, I got a question.
Okay. Len, anything for you?
Niente, nothing.
Okay. Paul Frieda, anything for you?
Nothing for me tonight. Thanks. I'm good.
Jimmy G, anything for you?
I want to sell my time to Carl Foreman for only $200. I'm good.
Okay, you have to make that deal in the chat window, okay?
Okie dokie.
Sylvester, anything for you? Where's my man Sylvester? There he is. Sylvester, anything for you?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Dr. Mark, anything you'd like to talk about?
I don't need to talk about anything, but I'd like you to mention what's coming up at the Marsh Theater with John Ivory.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. We will. All right. You know what? I'll come to you and I'll let you mention it.
I don't have the details.
Oh, okay. Well, you and I can work on it together. How about that? Let's see, Brian Alexander, welcome back this week. Delighted. We're always love to see somebody back the following week. Do you have any updates for us this week? You're muted right now.
Rick, are you meaning Brian Davenport?
Sorry, Brian Davenport.
Yeah, I have a question, I guess, I'd like to ask.
Okay, forgive me. I know another Brian Alexander. I don't know why I put Alexander. Gary Peters, anything for you?
Hi, Rick. Also a question, thanks.
Okay. Ken Anderson, anything you'd like to bring up this week? We see the green, but we don't hear you, Ken.
Nope. I'm good this week, thanks.
Okay, great. Jim Jeffries, anything for you, sir?
I'm okay this week, thanks. Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Joe Merger, anything you'd like to raise?
Nothing this week, thank you.
Okay. Jim Schraidt, anything for you?
Nothing, Rick, just listening.
Carl Foreman, anything you'd like to bring up?
Yes.
Okay, got ya. Make that deal with, this is like the draft here. You make a deal with Jimmy, you move all the way up to Jimmy's position. You know that.
I want him to create a theme song for this group.
I thought Jimmy had a 2-minute limit.
Okay, Stan Friedman, anything for you?
I'm good, thanks, Rick.
Okay. Bill Franklin, anything for you?
If there's time, I have a question not directly related to prostate cancer, but
okay. George Pravda, anything you'd like to raise?
Rick, no, thank you.
I thought there was a question you had for me, and I said bring it up to the group. I can't remember what it was now, though. I'd have to look.
I'm still doing my research on it, and we could I'll bring it up maybe another time. Thanks. Thanks for you sent me info on it. Thank you for that.
That's right, and I remember what the question was, and we won't talk about it till next week. Okay, you're good.
Great.
Joe Boardman, well, hello, Joe. So nice to see you. Is this the real Joe with the short hair, or is this what's going on here? And
that's me.
It's you. And nothing for you? Okay. And last but not least, Mr. Jackson, anything for you? Oh, and I see Jake's on now. Okay.
Still quiet on the Eastern Front. We're good.
All quiet on the Eastern Front. Jake, anything for you?
No, thank you.
Okay. I think I've covered anybody. Is there anyone who I did not ask if they need time? All right, we're rolling. Let's start with Dr. John.
Gee, I don't know what to say. I've never been first before. I'm not ready.
Maybe you need maybe you need to see a shrink about this.
Yeah. Here's my question. I'm seeing the med-onc tomorrow. And just as a reminder, I'm a 4+5 who had a radical prostatectomy a year and a half ago and have been on abiraterone and leuprolide since then. Now, April, May, June, July, 3 months ago, I was taken off my Abby because of leg swelling. The leg swelling went away. Now, tomorrow, I have to talk to the guy. My original treatment plan was to be on abiraterone and Lupron for, I forgot what it was, 3 years or something like that. So my last PSA was less than 0.02. So I'm going to have a discussion with him tomorrow about whether to reinstate a secondary drug. Now, maybe he's going to say you're non-detectable, so just go with the Lupron. Maybe he's going to say, let's switch to an androgen blocker. I doubt he's going to say re-challenge the abiraterone because he seemed like he was worried about my heart. So I wanted to just get ready with some knowledge about, isn't it true that double drug therapy on average will lengthen my time to recurrence and I should ask for it? Or if he says, hey, you're fine, you're non-detectable, why don't you just stay on the Lupron and watch it? What do you guys think?
You know, well, first of all, you know, the good news is you've got a very good, smart medical oncologist in Dan Petrolak, who I assume that's who you're seeing tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's who I'm seeing. But he's fast and argues real quickly, and you got to be ready for him. And crabby.
Well, let me ask. Let's start with Len, because Len's familiar with abiraterone. He tried it, didn't like it. I think we're all agreed that probably that abiraterone did have something to do with the edema. Len, how would you be dealing with Petrolac?
Well, regardless of the original plan, now you just had a radical prostatectomy and then hormone therapy, John?
Radiation also.
Oh, okay. When was the radiation?
Fall of 2020.
So it's not even a year yet. Yeah, you should be on stay with the hormone therapy for at least 18 months from the start of your radiation. And then at that time, assuming you're still nearly undetectable, you can go on a drug holiday. I mean, that's typically what would be offered to you. Did I address the right question, or were you more interested in?
And I think the question is, through the when would your 18 months be up?
18 months after the end of radiation treatment.
No,
that would be 1 year from now.
Okay. When would 18 months from when you started the hormone therapy finish?
That would be January of 2022.
So, I mean, I think the issue is you got to stay on. If it were any of us, at least the moderators, we'd be staying on till Jan 2022 on the ADT.
I'm in no hurry to get off the drug, even though I hate it. I've only just achieved non-detectable status. I'd be too scared to go off yet.
Well, that's good news. I don't know we knew you were undetectable. That is great news.
Well, less than 0.02. That's what that means, right?
01.
Oh, I guess Questlab must have a minimum detectable limit of 0.02 then, right? But you can't really call yourself undetectable unless you're 0.01, which means I need a more sensitive lab. I know the Yale lab goes down to 0.008.
Right, and I've never seen anybody go to 0.02. I've always seen it go down to 0.01.
Oh, well, that's the Quest lab here. They're very popular in the Northeast.
Oh,
Yeah.
zero
When I
point
use
one, I should say.
when I use Quest 0.02 was the lowest they would go.
Oh,
Now
hold
I
on a second. Sorry, Larry, hold on one second. I'm wrong. You're saying 0.02?
Yeah.
0.02. Oh, no, that's good, 0.02. Yeah, I mean, I would say at 0.02, I was thinking 0.1 or 0.2. But
Oh.
0.02, yeah, no, 0.02 is great. 0.02 is undetectable, yeah.
LabCorp will go to 0.01 on the LabCorp test, so they are a little lower. John, what's your testosterone level?
3.
On the Lupron. I'm
3.
sorry, I didn't. 3?
Yeah. There's
So,
not
I mean,
hardly a drop in me, and that's how I feel too.
but, you know, I think the question here is, how long are you going to stay on? You know, if you can handle it for 2 years, for 24 months, that would be dynamite. But the question is, do you want to add another drug between now and the end?
That's the question exactly,
That's the
because
question,
that was
Len.
part of my original treatment plan, and that was
Right.
based on the fact that I have some grade 5 pathology in there, and that I had a metastasis in a lymph node. So it was a good aggressive treatment plan.
Right. So,
Could I say something?
I mean,
You don't want.
I think if it were me, I would try to add something. I'd probably try to add an androgen blocker if it were me. What do other people think between now and the end of the time?
I agree.
Thank you, Ken.
I have a strategy that's similar but mixed. If you're talking to the doctor tomorrow, I think you have to discuss the possibility of darolutamide.
Yeah, if I am going in the androgen blocker, I'll try to argue for that, because the guys in the group here that have been on it seem to tolerate it much better than the other ones.
Yeah, my doc said that she thought I would experience some additional fatigue or side effects if I added it on top of Lupron. But I formed a strategy somewhere between my doctor and Len, which is that I would want to try. I mean, I don't know if he's going to go for that, but maybe you add it, and then if you stayed, below 0.02, 0.01, then to drop the Lupron and see how it holds. Try to reduce the side effects. Just wanted to mention where my strategy is.
Now that's interesting.
Doc has to agree because dropping the Lupron is not protocol. Some doctors will do that.
Right. Thanks, Larry.
That's my thought.
What
No,
about
Larry,
this business of? Oh, go ahead, Ken.
No, that's a good point, because I've been off Lupron, just Abby, for the last year, and it's held my T levels below. I mean, they bounced around recently, but in general below 1. So there's no reason to do both.
Good. Wow.
So I'd also like to thank Dr. Mark for bringing up testosterone level.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're taking these drugs to lower our T levels, we should know where they are. Most medical oncologists don't even look or don't even tell us.
I have to ask for it.
Yeah, keep an eye on your T levels. If you're taking these drugs to block T levels, you should know where your T levels are.
Well, we had a guy in the group about 6 months ago. I don't know who, but somebody was got their T level while they were on ADT, and it was 52 or something like that. It was, pretty high.
Gary
So why go through
Peters.
all this suffering if it's not going to lower our T levels?
Well, I think it was Gary Peters, and we determined that it was just a lab mistake.
I see.
I think that's what it was.
But for a moment, it was exciting, John. It was 700. It was 700 something.
Look, I think that I'm keeping an eye on all the people that want to talk today. So I do want to move on. But I think that the answer is, if it were, most of us would want to add something back, probably, but not abiraterone, and that darolutamide is the best if you can get it, and that there may even be some value in going to monotherapy with whatever you add back.
Okay.
And I think those are the points to be ready to discuss with Petrolac. We've had guys with success on monotherapy abiraterone, monotherapy darolutamide. Don't know that we've had anybody on monotherapy apalutamide or yes, we have. Monotherapy apalutamide was Al, what's his name? Al Fat.
I got a quick question about darolutamide, Rick. Is it only indicated for castrate resistant, or is it indicated, do I meet the indication?
It's indicated for non-metastatic castrate resistant, which
Okay,
is,
so I'll have to argue for it
a
then.
non sequitur. That's the problem with that. Because
Yeah.
So can I throw a monkey wrench into the works?
Yeah.
Which is your PSA is 0.02. Let's say you add or change. How will you know if it's effective? Because your
different
PSA
indicator.
isn't going to go down at all.
That's right. It's the time to recurrence that I'm gambling for here.
Uh-huh. I mean, that's, I hear you. I mean, but I think that's just something you got to think about.
Yeah, because who the heck knows if it affected
Right,
the
we don't
time to
know.
recurrence. What if a year goes by? I don't know which did it. But the literature supports the time to recurrence being
It
low,
does.
doesn't it?
It does, and that's why you took Abby.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, guys.
But with the, I agree with you, Herb, with the testosterone of 3 and the PSA at a level that's barely measurable, I don't know that you do nothing but put pressure on these cells to mutate and skip over the androgen receptor. I don't think it's the same with where you are now as the other people who entered into those studies and got combined treatment. So I don't know that we can apply those studies to your situation here and say you absolutely have 2 drugs.
Because those people were castration resistant, you mean?
No, not at the start, but they started with a higher value.
Oh.
So they would have been given ADT plus Abby at the initial versus ADT and chemo, right? Whereas you're adding it on after we know that ADT is working.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. Is it, ADT is working. We know you're not castration resistant.
Yeah.
And as Mark said, there are data that I just read a paper recently that says people who are on Abby and Enza have different gene expression profiles than people who don't in their prostate.
Oh.
And that worries me a little bit, to tell you the truth. But I'm not going to go off Abby. But at the same time, it makes me think about what else is happening other than it's being, it's suppressing tumor growth.
Oh, how strange. So it could even potentially be affecting the rate of mutations.
Well, I mean, look, we know it affects the rate of mutations. When I say we know, yeah, I mean, we know that guys who stay on abiraterone and enzalutamide for a long period of time it often results in their disease morphing into something that's less treatable and resembles neuroendocrine small cell disease, and we've known that for a long time. I think I was at UCSF when Eric Small announced that research around 2015, and we've seen it happen with Richard Fudig, God rest his soul, was one person. We've seen it with 2 or 3 different people where they've been on. We saw it with Rob Berniscus, who got 4 years out of abiraterone, but when he finished, we couldn't find anything to treat him with. So, I mean, we pretty much know that the disease does morph if you spend too long. It's one of the reasons why Dennis Correa decided he was going to take a drug holiday, get himself off of abiraterone for a while, and take a break. So it isn't new. I don't know how it might be all anecdotal. I don't know how well it's backed up. But well, I do know that the morphing issue is well backed up, and I've got references on that I can send you. Papers by Agarwal and Small. If you Google Small, Agarwal, small cell prostate cancer, you'll find those papers. But how quickly it happens, we don't know. And it sounds like the paper that Herb was just mentioning might be another in that series of papers. But guys, we've really got to move on because we've got a lot of people, and this is not that this isn't a good conversation, but I can already tell you we'll be going over time. Gaoshan, please tell us, how's life in Panama right now, and how are you doing?
Well, I've been here since July 10th. It's warm, not too humid, up to the 90s, and it rains about 3 days a week in the afternoon for an hour or two, and the rest of the time it's sunny or partly cloudy. And I've been out hiking and up in the mountains, and now I'm back in Panama City for another 4 or 5 days before I go someplace else. Okay. As you know, I've now completed my 3rd injection of Eligard by Tolmar at OHSU. My PSA has continued to drop, going down from the start before I had the first injection from 2.02 to February 18th of this year to 0.146. And on April 30th, it dropped down to 0.1, which was right before I started the radiation in my larger pelvic area, in the prostate bed and a larger area around that. Dropped down to 0.1 on 4/30, and on 6/16, it dropped down to 0.05. I have my 4th injection of Eligard scheduled for the 2nd of September, and then my testosterone level from the start before anything was 770. It dropped down to 23 in March, and in July 12th it dropped down to 21. And I am scheduled also for a 5th injection and early December, and then Dr. Vuki and another doctor will consult and see how we proceed based on what the results are. I talked to them about the Abbey and stuff, but they said right now that's not something we want to do. We'll look at it at a later date. You're making the right progress in the right direction at this point.
Yeah, you know, it's a real tough issue with adding this Abbey, this discussion we just had with Dr. John. I mean, it is the protocol now, and you know, your disease came back, and I think there was Was the disease seen in the lymph nodes, or was it just a rise in the PSA, Gao-Shan?
There was, I mean, I had the PSMA at UCLA, and as you may remember, I was diagnosed as no reoccurrence, no return, nothing diagnosed.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to the director, is like, well, it's probably really small. It may be in the prostate bed. And then when I went and saw Dr. Vogelsang, he said, for sure you have cancer. It's really small. And you can either do it here, or since your son lives in Oregon, why don't you go and visit Dr. Vuki, and I'll give you a recommendation. But clearly you have cancer. Most likely it's still in the prostate bed. I had 2 MRIs. I had a normal CT PET scan. Every one of them were negative.
So I think probably, I'm guessing the reason that Vuki is not saying to add something is because there was never really any evidence of metastasis. It was all suspected. And I think that maybe brings you down a notch. So, you know, if we saw something in the lymph nodes, we saw something in the bone, they would have added something even with low volume.
Right. That's what UCLA said, as well as Dr. Vuki and the other doctor at OHSU.
But that all said, you're doing great. How are you feeling?
Knock on wood, I don't have any hot flashes. I don't have any befuddle, you know, difficulty having a foggy mind. And I didn't have any issues with the radiation, other than about 60% of the way through, I had a burning sensation when I first started to pee, but that went away shortly after I started to pee, and now was gone about 9 days after I finished the radiation.
Now I think there's a lot of people that would trade places with you if they could. Anybody want to say anything to Gao-Shan or comments to Gao-Shan?
Well, I do have a doctor's appointment with Dr. Vuki in the middle of September, so I'll be able to give you guys an update what comment she says.
Okay, maybe you can touch base with Ted Healy when you're up there, and you two guys can compare notes. Is Ted still with us? I think he might have left, but we'll connect you before then, or drop me a note.
Hey, Rick,
we talked via email a couple of times before back in May or June.
Yeah.
Okay, please do touch base. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. We love it. We love it when people meet each other in person through this group. It's fantastic. All right, I'm going to keep moving, but before I do that, I do want to acknowledge David Plunkett, because I think you've never been in this group before. Am I right, Mr. Plunkett? Is this your first time? Well,
we don't hear him.
We don't hear you. Even though your microphone is working, we don't hear you. So not sure why, but let me just say, unfortunately, it's very tough for us when new men come in late and in the meeting, as you can hear. But please come back on next Tuesday, please, and we'll make sure you get in right at the beginning and tell us about your situation, and also put your email in the chat window, and so we can add you. We can add you to the distribution. Okay. So, oh look, and Ted Healy's just put his there, so anybody coming to Portland can have him show you the best local breweries. All right. So sorry, Ted. We'll just have to. We can't handle it this week. All right, Bruce, you're up,
I
man.
don't know what you're talking about. I want to go visit Ted.
But go. How long is it going to take you to drive? Ken, how long does it take you to drive down to Portland?
No. I'll be flying on the 18th back to Portland. So I'll definitely hook us up. Right now I'm in AZ. So
Oh, are you? Okay.
yeah, I'll be back in Portland on the 18th. So I'll touch base with them.
Please do. We have great coffee as well.
Okay. All right. We made a match tonight. Bruce, speak up.
Yeah. So I went ahead and I had my PSMA done at the University of Michigan. I will tell you that it was one of the greatest experiences. What a great team up there. I highly recommend it in the Midwest. The folks were just wonderful. As you know, I'm on the fence with a low PSA, climbing slowly. I do have chemical recurrence, but it's only 0.27. And as they told me when up there, they said it'd be about a 40% chance that they would detect anything. And of course, nothing was detected. So now I'm just going to have to sit and wait probably another 6 months to a year and see what happens. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, like we usually say, I know Dr. Mark disagrees with us because that was his experience, but I think by and large, we try and encourage you to wait till you're higher than 0.5. I think what was pointed out to me, and it's a really, really good point, and Mark may comment on this, is that if you have non-diffuse metastasis, so that all the metastasis is in one place, that likely it might be seen at a lower level, at less than 0.5, which was Mark's case. But by and large, most of the guys we know who have gone for these scans under 0.5 have not gotten a result. Now, Dr. Mark, you can call me whatever you wish to call me.
Well, no, I mean, I have to be humble after spending $30,000 for a local treatment. I think that that point makes sense if you're going in on your initial view. My initial PSA was a lot higher, and then I did the local treatment. I also think it depends on where in the prostate the lesion is. If you're in the transitional zone, it's less likely to spread than in some of the other areas. If you have a bulging capsule like I did, you may be more likely to have disease in a particular area. So, I don't think in prostate cancer, the one thing that I've learned is it's not a one size fits all disease. And it's great to know that you didn't see anything. So there's no rush to do anything on treatment. So in a way, I think that's a good finding, regardless of what those numbers are.
Yeah, and the other thing is Rick and I have been talking about this. I'm looking at, I have a urologist right now, and I'm looking to get an oncologist on board just to have a meeting with somebody, and that way, should something arise, I've got somebody that I know and I can go to right away. I'm looking at a couple of people at the University of Chicago and Northwestern. Actually, I'm probably going to have appointments with 3 different doctors, all recommended by Rick or somebody else. Actually found a local neighbor here that is seeing the same guy at the University of Chicago. But I'm going to go see all 3 and then determine which one I like the best. Go from there.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
Sounds like a plan. Now, when you say all 3, are you going to see 2 different ones at University of Chicago?
Well, I probably am. I mean, I may drop one off just because of the fact that someone here locally really highly recommended Russell.
Schmulowitz.
Yeah, exactly. And his best friend's daughter is the head nurse of oncology there, and that's who she recommended.
Yeah. Well,
And
you heard it here first, did you not?
Pardon?
You heard it here first.
Oh, shut up.
Look, the only thing is sometimes it's very difficult to get two different appointments at the same institution. So don't be surprised.
Right, but I have one at Northwestern already scheduled.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, and I got one at USC scheduled. I'm probably going to drop that one off and go with Russell.
Yeah. I think if it were me right now, I probably would go to Schmulowitz rather than Stadler. We've always heard good things about Stadler, but when I look at the research, I see Schmulowitz's name more often, and we've had people who have gone to him and really liked him. John Ivory, for one. Hopefully John will be back with us next week. His mum's funeral is tomorrow. So I think if it were me right now, that's who I'd be going to see, Schmulowitz.
Yep.
So I don't think you can go wrong with either, but I think it'll be hard for you to see both and then choose between the two, because most institutions won't let you do that.
Right. All right.
All right. Anybody want to say anything to Bruce? Anything nice to Bruce? All right. Joe Gallo, tell us where you are in your treatment.
Yeah, I think it can be, I can probably keep it fairly short. I started the Orgovix pills last week, so nothing to report on that other than I'm taking one a day, and no noticeable reaction at this stage of the game. And but I will be starting, or not starting, I'll be having the HDR brachy tomorrow.
All right.
And then IMRT starting next week.
So is this just one? They're going to do it for you in a single session. Is that right,
Yes.
Joe?
Yes, it's a single session. It's actually they actually are calling it a brachy boost, but it's the IMRT will start next week on next Tuesday.
Well, the good news with the brachy, at least when I had it, was that they put you out, so you don't even know your legs are up in those stirrups, even though you're an expert. So
I've been there a couple of times already. Yeah,
I know you have. Yeah. Did you measure your testosterone before you started?
456.
Okay. Thank you. We're making a note of that. We're making a note of that right now. Anybody who has had HDR have any words of advice for Joe for tomorrow?
It'll be over before you know it, Joe.
That's what I'm planning on.
Yeah, make sure they turn the catheter back on because they forgot to do mine.
Well, we'll see how they do. I've got
Bring a cigarette to smoke afterwards.
What was that?
Bring a cigarette to smoke afterwards.
Geez, I haven't smoked anything except a pipe 20, 30, 40 years ago. No, I'll have more to share next week after the experiences.
Okay.
Did they tell you how many needles?
What's that?
How many needles for the brachytherapy?
You know, I actually don't know, but I will know that at that point.
Okay.
Thank you for thanks, Julian, for chiming in there. Really appreciate it. All right.
I just had it recently.
Yeah, I know. We know you just went through it. So that's one of the reasons why I always ask, because there's people who have been through these treatments, and sometimes there are little things you don't even think about that are so helpful, and you only know it after you've done it, and that's what we want to share. So anyone else have an HDR they want to say anything about? Okay, we're moving along. And next, I think Mark Thompson left, which is a bummer, but I will reach out to him. Jim Barnes, you did not have anything you wanted to share, is that right?
I did not.
That's right, okay. But Tom Swartzel had a question.
Yeah. I got a question about the androgen blockers. Of the four, I guess I'm talking about enzalutamide, apalutamide, abiraterone, and darolutamide. How do they decide which one they're going to give you, I should say? I mean, my urologist was going to give me apalutamide, and I switched to Ohio State. There was a Dr. Parikh, and he just stayed with that recommendation. So I guess the question is, how do they decide that?
So first of all, they're all called second line anti-androgens. They're not all androgen blockers. 3 of them are androgen blockers, and one of them is not. So the drugs work differently. The androgen blockers, if you think of the androgen receptor as a keyhole, the androgen blockers come along and they basically place a key in that keyhole so the testosterone cannot get in. And those are the IDEs, apalutamide, enzalutamide, and darolutamide. And we'll come back to them momentarily. The abiraterone acetate works in a different way. And what that does is it basically diffuses the testosterone. So it finds the testosterone and it breaks it down and it gets rid of it anywhere that there's testosterone in the body.
Okay.
I mean, that's sort of a way I see Dr. Mark smiling, so I'll let him explain it momentarily when I'm done. But that's sort of the way that it works. It's more complicated, but that's sort of the way it works. Now, what we seem to think is that if you take abiraterone first, and you have to take it with prednisone, there is a chance that when you're done with the abiraterone, that one of the androgen blockers may work. It's not a big chance, but there's a small chance. If you do it the other way around, the research has suggested that abiraterone very rarely works after one of the androgen blockers. So most good docs will give you abiraterone if you can take it, but there are some people who aren't suitable candidates for the abiraterone, oftentimes because of the prednisone that you have to take with abiraterone, or a glucocorticoid. Doesn't have to be prednisone, it's usually prednisone. So that's why most people start with abiraterone and then move on to one of the other drugs. Some people don't tolerate abiraterone very well, like Len, but did great on darolutamide. Other people have a terrible time on the androgen blockers, like David Muslin, and have done fine on the abiraterone. So, you know, everybody's different. Now, between the IDEs of prostate cancer, not the Ides of March, between those IDEs, the best one is darolutamide because it doesn't cross the brain barrier and so seems to have less side effects. And the men who are on darolutamide feel much better on it. it's also got the narrowest FDA approval. Doesn't mean to say it wouldn't work for all of us, but the FDA has only approved it in a very narrow area. But if you can get it, you can usually get at least 2 months supply to begin with. And then it's a question of whether you can convince your insurance company to give it to you. Our experience on this call has been that darolutamide is the best of the three. And in fact, Len, for 22 months now, has been on darolutamide without an ADT drug like Lupron or, yeah. So that's what I'm going to say. Mark, what would you like, Dr. Mark, would you like to say something?
What I was going to say was that the ADT, the Lupron, Orgovyx, Firmagon, those kinds of drugs are going to drop gonadotropins and stop testosterone production by the testicles. But we've got a significant amount of our androgen produced by the adrenal gland. Bill, I think you've got some noise going on there if you can mute. So we have the adrenal glands producing androgens, and when you take the abiraterone, it shuts off that androgen production pathway. So the goal initially, I think, was with ADT to get the testosterone below 50. I think some people say now below 20. When you take the combination of ADT plus abiraterone, testosterone will be undetectable. I was interested in asking Len, who's taking just the blocker, receptor blocker, whether the androgen levels actually go higher with that, because we know that in a lot of the receptor genetic abnormalities, we see very high testosterone levels.
Yeah, Mark, my T levels rose to mid 300s, but that's not nearly as high as my T levels were when I wasn't on any ADT drug. But I wanted to just add to Tom Swartzel's question that when I added darolutamide to Leuprolide or Lupron, I didn't feel any different. It was as if I was taking a placebo pill.
So I could switch from apalutamide to darolutamide. Hopefully, if it comes to that, I shouldn't have any trouble, or as far as side effects go. I do have brain fog, so maybe the darolutamide might be the way to go.
Yeah, I had no brain fog.
After you've been on one?
Yeah, I guess the question is, can you switch?
Well, the problem is this, that it's approved, darolutamide is approved for non-metastatic castrate-resistant prostate cancer.
Non-metastatic, okay.
And so I'm just looking at my notes with you right now. Back in 2019, you had a Technetium scan that did not show any Mets. Are you showing any? I also have a note here that you tried darolutamide once before. Oh no, that's not you. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong one. Let me go back to you. Tom Swartz. Well, let me ask you, are you metastatic?
Yes.
And where?
It's in my lungs.
In your lungs. Well, here's what you got to do, okay? So this is, unfortunately, this is kind of monkey business, but Mordasavi seems like a good guy. You're now seeing Mordasavi, right?
Gonna see Dr. Monk here on the 3rd.
Okay, but you didn't, Parak left and they switched you, right?
We requested Dr. Monk, and then we went and talked to, or got a recommendation from Lindsay Burns.
Yeah.
And she gave us a good review from both of them.
Okay.
So we just stayed with Dr. Monk.
Okay, so you're gonna stay with Dr. Monk. Okay. So here's what you got to do with Dr. Monk. You've got to tell him, ask him, you need another Technetium 99 bone scan. Okay. Now Technetium 99, somebody will put it in the chat window for you. You need a Technetium 99 bone scan. Now, the chances are that Technetium 99 scan is not going to show your mets in your lungs. And so that means that you're going to be non-metastatic. And at least as non-metastatic, you've got a chance that maybe you can get the darolutamide, even though we know you're metastatic.
Okay.
All right. It's because when they approved this at the FDA 3 or 4 years ago, I suspect they deliberately chose an old technology that was not likely to show mets. And so they got approved in this space that is called non-metastatic castrate resistant. Now, are you castrate resistant? Probably not, but maybe your doc can make a case for that if he's willing to, and maybe he can get you onto the darolutamide. Some of the docs do it. Don't ask me how, but they do it.
Okay.
And anybody else want to comment on that? Len, do you want to say anything more on that?
No, I think you covered it, Rick.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks.
Okay.
One last thing. Tomorrow is the caregivers.
Yes.
Well, Linda will be there. Linda said she'll be there tomorrow.
Fantastic, Linda. We will wait for you guys. Tell all your caregivers to come to the group tomorrow, 5 o'clock, same channel. We love to have the caregivers with us. All your caregivers are welcome. Sylvester will tell you it is a wonderful meeting. Is that true, Sylvester?
5 o'clock, what time?
5 o'clock. Sorry.
Okay.
The meeting is at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. And Sylvester, do you like that meeting?
It is an excellent meeting. It has helped me tremendously.
Okay.
And my sister also.
I'll be there.
Okay. And any other of you who have caregivers, send them to the meeting. We would love to see them. Now, since we're in the mood for a promotion, we're going to do a promotion for the 25th of August at 7:30 Pacific, which is a little late in the day, back on the East Coast, for an artist who has worked closely with Dr. Mark. Dr. Mark, why don't you introduce this artist and sell the event on the 25th?
Okay, Shelby Hofer is a theater manager, and 11 years ago came to me with fertility issues. We found out that her ovaries had shut down too early, and she ended up going to Ukraine for treatment, and took her 11 years to be able to sit down and write her story down. And she has a one-woman play, although there is a character in the play, the mysterious Dr. Mark, who is an Elvis cut, a life-size Elvis cutoff, wearing a lab coat. That's part of it. I don't know if we'll get to see the whole show or just part of it, but it's very funny. And it's about the healing process and how the arts can help you heal. So it's part of the Marsh Theater's events, and John Ivory is hosting that. I don't know if you're going to be interviewing her. I saw your interview with Jimmy, and that was great. I hope you have a chance to talk to Shelby that night.
Yeah, no, John Ivory is the producer, and he does a fantastic job auditioning these guests and putting it all together. And then my job is just the hour. Well, I usually talk to the guests beforehand just to get a feel for them, and then I do the interview. So so you'll have to listen to me again. Sorry about that, but hopefully we'll pull out some good stuff from talking with Shelby. If you did not see the one that we did last week, they're once a month with Michael Bahovsky, who lives with EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It was fabulous. It was great. And you'll find that either on our YouTube channel or on our blog very soon. And I do recommend you listen to that. And next month, this month now, Shelby Harper. All right, we're done with promos, and we're moving on to Brian Davenport, who has a question for us. Brian, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. My first week was last week, and it was very helpful. I appreciate being part of the group. I'm going to get a port put in on Wednesday in anticipation of starting my second round of chemo, which will be in probably a week or two, and it'll either be at a trial at NIH or it'll be at Walter Reed. I am scheduled for a PSMA scan, and I'm going to have it done at Fort Belvoir. Initially, they said they couldn't do it, but then they came back and said they're able to do that. So I'm scheduled next Tuesday to have that PSMA scan. I had a question about the lithium, I'm not saying that right, LU-177 trial. It sounded like that the criteria talked about having gone through a second round of chemo before you would be accepted into that trial. Is that your understanding?
My understanding was only one chemo. You had to have at least one chemo and not two chemos, but I would have to look.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were saying if you have another option available to you still, they wanted you to go through that second option.
I don't know. I think Herb's looking it up right now, from what I can tell. And we'd have to look at the eligibility.
Yeah.
But from memory, the eligibility was just, you had to have done chemo first, but at least one type of chemo, but you were not required to have done two types of chemo.
Okay, and then just very, very quickly, as far as I can tell, my testosterone has been a negative 2.5. I mean, I've never had, ever since I've been on Lupron, I've never had a score or a number that hasn't said less than 2.5. Am I not reading that right, or is that possible? And if it is possible, does the abiraterone that I was on for 2 months, and now I'm on enzalutamide, which I'll finish up probably when they make a decision on the chemotherapy, with the testosterone that low, does it still have value?
Well, first of all, yes, your testosterone could be less than 2.5, and I'll defer momentarily to Ken because he's the expert on those numbers, but I think it could be, especially if you're on both. What was the reason why you switched from abiraterone to
The scan, the reason is that my PSA number went up slightly from about 4 to 4.6, and they found new areas of cancer on an MRI in the bones. So new areas on the ribs, and in one particular place on the rib, in comparing it, it looked like the spot had grown from 2.9 centimeters to 3.9 centimeters. So it looked like the abiraterone wasn't causing a shrinkage, if you will, of the known cancer areas. And so then they realized they really thought I needed to go back on the chemotherapy, but we were looking at the possibility of this trial at NIH, and it wasn't quite open. It is now. And so since the abiraterone had the PSA rising slightly, and the scans show new areas of cancer, they didn't think it was working, and they didn't think the enzalutamide would really work either. They said there'd be a 10 or 15% chance that it might, but we really were waiting until I could make the decision to go on the chemotherapy. And so that's the direction I would imagine. I would expect in the next week or two that decision will get made. But I also had a biopsy that showed that a portion of the material showed small cell carcinoma-like cells. And so, as you mentioned earlier about staying on abiraterone and enzalutamide for a long period of time, it morphs into that small cell. Of course, I wasn't on it very long at all, but that's what the biopsy shows. So we don't need to talk about that tonight, but obviously, in those that material was being sent for ancillary molecular testing.
Right.
Yeah, and so we don't have the results back on that yet.
So a couple of things here. And for some very strange reason, all the notes that I put into my computer last week are not here now. And I don't know why. Very frustrating. So I'm doing this totally from memory. But how long will it take before you get those genomic, the next generation sequencing results, the somatic sequencing results, Brian?
Of the biopsy material?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. In other words, they were sent for testing. They could be back now, and I just don't know it yet.
Herb, do you know how long the NGS takes internally at the NIH? Herb?
Yeah, I'm just looking. It's not that long. I'm just trying, I can't figure it out that quickly. But, oh, okay. It looks to me like it was about 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. Okay, that's great, because some of them, the old dream team, it used to take 6 weeks. They'd be sending it to OHSU and turn it around, and they were sitting on their hands there. But it's got to be about 2 weeks since they didn't they take the biopsy from the prostate, Brian?
They took the biopsy from the hip.
Oh, from the hip. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So, to me, before I really did anything, I would want to see what mutations you have. I wouldn't dive into treatment until you see those mutations. The likelihood in your case is that the abiraterone didn't have anything to do with the morphing. It had probably morphed before. When were you first diagnosed?
In 2019, March of 2019.
And just remind us again, and then you had a, did you do surgery? I'm sorry to go through this again, but I just don't have
Just
the notes.
very quickly. 2019, I started with a PSA of 305.
Right.
I had a biopsy of the prostate and a biopsy of the liver. They were both positive. And then I started on Lupron reducing it, and that had a very immediate impact of knocking down the PSA numbers. And I was on doxycycline for 6 cycles of 3 weeks, and I was basically in pretty good shape until October of 20, when the PSA started to rise again. And at that point, I went into a trial at NIH on immunotherapy drugs, was in it for about 4 months, and my PSA continued to rise. And so they recommended I go back and begin the standard treatment of the abiraterone, which I did at Walter Reed.
Yeah, so, and now you're trying to get into another NIH trial, right?
So,
But it's combined with doxycycline this time, and also immunotherapy drugs.
So,
I mean, Brian, my own sense is that, we have an experience with Ken Anderson here on long-term taxol. And I'm just curious as to why it was not suggested that you just do that for trial again, because your tumor was obviously sensitive to it the first time.
That's what they're thinking of doing.
I'm sorry, I want to make sure I understand. Say that again, Herb.
Well, your tumor responded to taxol very well.
Yes, that's correct.
And then it came back and did not respond to Abby.
That's correct.
But so the question at that point to me would be, wouldn't it still be responsive to a taxane alone?
Yeah. Yes. That's why they're looking at doing the chemotherapy. But I guess and that may be the decision. Right now, both my oncologist at Walter Reed and the oncology team there at NIH are talking together.
Right. But I think one of the other things we said to you last week, Brian, is it would be really good to have a GU oncologist who basically only was interested in you. Right,
and I'm beginning to look for that. I definitely, it's. I think finding a quarterback. I think this is harder than the NFL. Because you don't know. I mean, you really need to have informed people like yourselves that can give knowledgeable recommendations and experience. And I have a guy at church that has a GU oncologist at Georgetown. He thinks the world of her. but I'm just beginning the process of trying to find that quarterback. So I'm still working that.
Well, I mean, there's a few things here. Until you find the quarterback, I would not be entering into personally, I wouldn't enter into a trial. Not that you can't go into a trial and get out of it whenever you want to get out of it, you can. But there's some information that you need. You definitely need to know what mutations you have. It would be very helpful to know if you have the right signals that you're going to be receptive to the immunotherapy before you start the immunotherapy. There's a whole bunch of issues here, and like Herb says, when you're dealing with doctors who are pushing you from one trial into the next.
No, you're right, Rick. I picked up on that from your guidance and your talk last week.
Right. So I would say it should be a priority to get an appointment. Now, I think you're talking about Nancy, I forget her last name at Georgetown.
Dawkins, Nancy Dawkins.
Dawkins, right. She may be really good. We've known people who have gone to her before. Personally, I wouldn't go to her. I'd be going to somebody at either Hopkins or at Duke, because I think they're stronger. I think they're stronger departments, and I think they're better. That said, we've known people go to Nancy Dawkins, but she wouldn't be my choice. So there you go. Okay. I feel like your disease might have gotten into a small cell neuroendocrine space just of its own accord. It might not have been encouraged by a short period of time on abiraterone. It might have just moved that way just on the basis of having been on hormone therapy. The other issue is that you need to be discussing whether the next step wouldn't be to debulk your primary tumor. You still have your prostate. It's never been treated, correct?
That's correct.
I mean, that would be the first discussion I'd be having if it were me. Before we do any other of these trials, these treatments, what have you, let's treat the primary. Ken, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree about treating the primary, but I can't help but think that systemic treatment is more important. So, I mean, you can continue to search for your quarterback during the next, however long it takes. But, since docetaxel was effective, the re-challenge of doing a chemotherapy is not a bad idea. And I know everyone has this knee-jerk reaction that, hey, I really don't want to do it. And don't get me wrong, first round of chemotherapy for me gave me shingles. So I know full well that it's a mindset that you have to become comfortable with. But at the same time, for those guys that get a good result from taking a taxane-based drug, I mean, it is effective. I've been doing docetaxel for the last 14 and a half months. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are things you can do to mitigate the chemo crash. I mean, I don't do it every 3 weeks. I do it every 4 weeks, just buying one additional week per cycle to hope to find something in the future like lutetium when it's approved. I think it's my next treatment. But for now, I think it's in your best interest to jump on one of those truly systemic standard of care treatments that will give you benefit. I mean, it's not fun, but for the chemo crash, my thing is, it comes 3 or 4 days after the docetaxel. You just take a little extra dexamethasone, and it's not that bad. and I'd be happy to chat with you about, but I would try to get on to some systemic treatment.
Well,
I mean, you can,
Ken, he's on systemic treatment.
he's on
He's
Abby,
not
right?
but he's not on chemotherapy. He's on LHRH and enzalutamide right now.
No, I understand, but it's not holding his PSA from progressing.
Well, but what you're saying is you try and get onto chemotherapy. That's different from getting onto systemic treatment. He's on systemic treatment. You're saying step
Well,
up.
I know, Rick. I understand that, Rick, but is it holding his PSA?
Well, how is it holding your PSA, Brian?
Well, when I left NIH in March, it was 4.3. When I first went on abiraterone, it went down to in April to 2.73, but then in May it went back up to 4.98, and in June it was 4.94, and in July I had a 4.6.
And that's on enzalutamide and Lupron or something similar to
That's right. 3-month Lupron shots.
Right. So it is holding it, Ken. It is
No, I
holding
agree. Now that I know that information, it is, yeah. So I think you have time. I mean, you have time to look for a quarterback. I agree with Rick. You have time to look. You don't have to make a decision right now. My PSA, after all, is in the 20s. You know, it was in the 50s or 48. So I think you have time to look around, take your time, and find some quarterback to help guide your care. And I do. I wouldn't give it months, but I would give it.
Right.
I mean, you have time to look.
Well, and my last question then is, this group really focuses in on the PSA. You know, and there are some segments where the doctors give the impression that they don't feel the PSA once you've had the disease for a while is all that.
We talk about PSA, but we also do scans every 4 to 6 months.
Right, and so the scans are where their focus is on, and whether they're seeing new areas or new growth.
So have you seen?
When was your last scan, Brian?
I just went through a series in the June timeframe.
Okay, and when was the scan before that?
When I came out of the it would have been probably the March, April in that time frame.
And when is your next scan planned for?
We're not there at this point because we have there's a feeling that the abiraterone didn't work, the enzalutamide probably isn't working, and so the next.
Whoa, time out. See, this is, yes, we focus on scans and we all recognize that PSA is not the only thing you look at. And we've done that for years and we've told our guys that for years and years. We're not concentrating on the PSA. At the same time, if we're going to talk about scans and if the way you're looking at scans is to keep the measurement, and that's not a bad idea if we think you've got small cell, then we need regular scans. And there's no point in saying, well, the Abbey didn't hold it. The enzalutamide seems to be holding it, at least by the PSA. But now, as you say, PSA isn't enough. We need a scan. So if your last scan was in June and we're already in August, we should be saying, okay, well, we're going to scan this again in September. Your doc should be saying. And if they're not saying it, you should be saying to your docs, hey, March, June, let's have a scan plan for September. Not, well, let's just see. We know what happened to your PSA in June and July.
I think right, Rick. I think what happened is that we got focused on the possibility of this trial at NIH, and that's why I even started the enzalutamide, waiting for that to open up. as a possibility, because it seemed like it, in addition to the doxytaxel, it had other mechanisms that might work. Okay.
But as you see, and we won't recover it, that's why we want an independent doc who's
right
looking over all of this and saying, well, we got to follow this. Now, was there an increase in your metastasis between March and June?
Yes, on the bone scans there were some new spots that they detected on the ribs.
Okay. And what did they use to scan you in June?
An MRI.
MRI. And now you say you've got a PSMA set up to do at one of the military hospitals?
Yes.
And that's when?
Tuesday.
All right. To be honest, you should be asking them to do a bone scan as well. Because
yeah, maybe they just, I've said MRI. They also did a bone scan
2 weeks ago on Friday.
and that was I've had so many tests, Rick, they run together, but it was probably
2 weeks ago on Friday.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago Friday.
Right. So here's one thing that we really want to encourage you to do, and you probably have some sort of good records anyway, but you keep good records and
right.
Pull them up. So you know, in June I had this, in July I had that, and so you know, one of the problems is we can't compare, we can't use your PSMA scan for comparison because it's like comparing apples to oranges when we compare a PSMA scan to a bone scan.
Okay.
So we don't know so what you want is whatever you did in June, you now want the same now. And then going forward, we can switch to PSMA scans as a comparison. But we need a simultaneous bone scan and PSMA scan in order to move forward. Otherwise, we don't know where you're going. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do. When you say simultaneous, is a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Friday, a bone scan and a PSMA scan on Tuesday. Are those close enough together?
Yeah, I mean, if they're 2 weeks apart, that's close enough together. So did the scan you did 2 weeks ago, how did that compare to the one in June?
As I said,
Brian, he's not meaning like 1 week to the next week. He's not meaning simultaneous being, week to week or month. He's meaning a comparison from one scan to the next scan so you can see the difference between the two scans. They may be 4 months apart, but you want to compare apples to apples. I want to just say that you're doing everything right. You're asking all the right questions. You're beating on the right drum. You're doing everything right. So
what I'll do, I think I've had all of the right tests. I think I'm not presenting it in a way because I don't have it all lined up. And I'll go back and make sure that I do before we address it. And I know you've got many other people here tonight, but what I'm taking away from this is that maybe I have a little bit of time to search for an advisor, a quarterback, and then
that's key. That's key. Find a good GU med-onc and you'll be good.
Yeah.
And interview more than one. Go see Nancy
Dawkins.
Yeah. And then maybe think about Dan George at Duke or Ken Pienta at Hopkins and see who you like best. I mean, this is so important.
What is the Hopkins reference? You said who?
Well, I would say right now Ken Pienta, Pienta. That would be my choice.
Go ahead, Herb, bring it in.
No, I mean, I go to somebody else and I think he'd be fine too.
Who is it?
Michael Carducci.
Carducci. But you know, I mean, I'm sounding like a broken record. We don't like Carducci based on two people having gone to him and having had a bad experience.
What was their bad experience?
We have people who see him and like him, or are happy with him. I don't recommend people who have left the dark for good reason. And one of the reasons is because he didn't take care of getting specimens over in time to other places.
Oh, well, that's bad news.
You know, and there are reasons why I don't have to get into them.
Okay.
But I don't want to go every time through this. If you're asking me, I would see Pienta. What about Pienta? He can be a bit of a bear. Yes. We always referred to Antanarakis. He's left. He's gone to Minnesota. He ain't there anymore. And Sam, what's his name? The BAT guy. He's a one-track pony with his BAT.
Okay.
You know, what he do? I mean, Carl will tell us momentarily because he went to see him this past week. But he you know, he's Mr. BAT.
You know, Rick, all I can say, and I know this is a point for you,
But why bring it up, Ken? You know, we're trying to
well,
move.
because let's move along. Let's move along.
Don't open the trap.
Let's move along.
It was a dumb thing to do.
No, it wasn't.
I feel.
Is because we've heard it before, and it's a silly thing to do. We're trying to move forward. I said Pienta, and somebody says, "Well, what about this one?" Come on, Herb, speak up. Thank you. It's 7:15, 7:20. Not the right time to say that. Use your head. Use your noggin.
Okay, I feel like I'm in a good place, and I appreciate those leads.
I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah.
This is not as a result of you. It's a result of people on this call not using their head before they open their mouth. And the doctors we would suggest, I would suggest, is Pienta.
You cleaning it?
It's done. It's hot.
I would suggest Pienta. I would suggest going to see Dawkins. We've known people who have gone to her. I would suggest Duke and Dan George. And if you ask me who's top of my list, I would say Duke at Dan George.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and that's all that I had for tonight. But
okay,
I'm not going away. So you'll.
Okay, Ken, we can chat right after this meeting. I'm happy to talk to you about this right after this meeting. Stay on, and Herb can stay on.
I will, Rick. I will.
Thank you.
All right. Carl, I'm sorry about that. Why don't you tell us about your experience with Sam Denmead?
Okay, it wasn't him, actually. It was a member of his team. There's a Catherine Handy Marshall, which Herb had mentioned to me that she's not a GU oncologist, but I had a good discussion with her. I'm not following up on anything with Johns Hopkins. They briefly talked about the BAT, that it's something that is very difficult to have a trial on, because the way she explained it, there's no money in it, and you can't get any sponsors to be able to do any of those trials. So that's why a lot of people are not doing it.
Yeah, we know that. We know that, and you know, and the results seem to be all over the shop.
Right. So yeah.
So where does that leave you?
You know, we briefly talked about Tagawa's trial, and she did concur that it really looks like a very interesting trial. So I'm meeting with Tagawa tomorrow morning. I'm going to have a gallium-68 PSMA scan on Wednesday as part of the beginning of the trial, and the trial will officially begin the following week.
Okay. So what was this doc that you saw? What type of doctor was she? Is she?
I looked her up. She's a junior member of the team. She just hasn't been doing GU that much.
Okay,
But she is, look, she's getting her I know I did a search on her publications, and she has published with Antonarakis and the other guys. So she clearly knows what's up.
So she's a GU med onc, but she's just not that experienced.
Right.
Okay.
Well, she said she's been there 15 years, so whatever that
Yeah, but
means.
she started out as a medical student.
Oh.
and then a resident, and then a fellow, and then whatever. So that eats up a lot of years, but not all as an attending.
Okay.
And what was her name again?
Catherine Handy Marshall.
Catherine Handy Marshall. Okay. And did she, and you were seeing her specifically about BAT, or just as another consult?
The second opinion, well, both. Yeah, it was both. And she said I wouldn't have qualified for the Denmead's trial that's coming up, where he's combining BAT with radium-223.
Okay. And what did she say about chemotherapy?
She basically agreed that it's something that's out there and it will be available to me when that time comes.
Did she think that it was a good option right now?
Actually, no. She actually believes that the Tagawa trial is really a viable option now.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with the Tagawa trial, and you'll tell us how you do. The PSMA, I assume, is so that you can start.
Right.
So it's to give a baseline for the trial, correct?
Yes, it's a gallium-68. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're done for the night. Ken and Herb, and please, hang in. The next meeting is going to be next Tuesday.
Rick, I had asked to ask a
Oh,
question.
sorry, Gary. I did. Yes, I went from
That's
Brian.
all right. It can wait till next week. It's not urgent. But have a good night, all.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Rick, this is Brian. I don't know if you wanted me to stay on, but
No, probably not.
yeah, okay.
No.
Then I'll drop off. But I am going to contact Dan George. Part of it is because I have a niece who is head of the emergency room medicine at Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and her husband, both of them Harvard-trained doctors, is a radiation oncologist, and they live in Chapel Hill.
Right.
So that would maybe in a connection that could help somewhere downstream. But
well, look, here's the issue there. UNC is just not a great hospital, and if you're going to get treatment in North Carolina, the place to go is Duke.
oh no, I'm going to Dan George by all means. But I'm just saying is that in terms of the medical community in that area, these are two new doctors that are pretty well respected in their fields down there. But
right.
in any case, I'll drop off and.
Brian, you'll find Dan to be a great guy.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything about your family. What
Yeah.
I'm saying, somebody just said it to me 2 days ago. God forbid you need a hospital in North Carolina, go to Duke, don't go to UNC. That's the rec. I
Yeah.
can't tell you for sure, but I'm talking about to people who have lived in that area for years and years and years. And we've seen things happen which aren't great at UNC. I'm sure things happen that aren't great at Duke too. But in terms of prostate cancer hospitals, Duke has a very, very strong reputation. I couldn't even tell you of a GU Med Onc at UNC.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
didn't know a GU Med Onc at UNC. I'm sure they're there. But you know, the other thing is, Duke is an NCCN hospital. I don't think UNC is. I suspect it's an NCI hospital, but I'm not even certain. Do you know, Herb? Is Duke an UNC?
I'm sure Duke is an NCI cancer center, but I don't have the information. I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
And the last thing I would say is don't get frustrated on my part.
No, we're not. We're not. Brian, you're just in the.
What I got out of tonight was wonderful, and I'm very elated with the information.
And one thing I am frustrated about is, you know, I put all these notes in on you last week, and sometimes this computer does it, and I don't know why. And I've got nothing there, and I know I did it. So
I'm almost completed with my update of my history, and when I get it done, I'll send it to you so you don't have to look for it.
Yeah, no. Send it to me, and I'll make the notes. And you can call me during the week, you know, if you feel you need to, because you have a tough situation. We know you have a tough situation, and I just think it's so important.
Well, and the good news is I'm feeling very good. I haven't felt any of the effects.
Well, I have a question for you. How were those 3 rounds of golf?
Oh yeah, you remembered that.
I remembered a lot.
We had a great time playing, but we didn't realize that this was a tournament where they didn't give you any of your handicap. It was just so you were playing mano a mano against the other people.
It's called best ball.
Yeah,
best ball.
Yeah, and so you know we were in the super senior category, but the golf course was 6,300 yards long, and normally a super senior you like to see a 5 in front of how long that course is going to be, and but we ended up as a best ball team. I think we had an 82 one day and maybe an 84 the next day, and our handicaps would say that we would shoot about that. So we shot about what we thought we would, but I feel good, and now I slept until about noon today. I was so tired, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good.
Let me ask you: you managed to play all 3 rounds, the whole rounds every day?
Yeah. Now being on the testosterone reducing drugs now for the last 2.5 years, I'm not the long hitter I used to be.
That's okay. You did just.
None of us, believe me, none of us are.
How many of those? Let's see. There was 54 holes, right?
Right.
How many of those holes did you have the best ball?
Oh, with my partner, I would say it was probably half and half, you know, but I mean, I had a few birdies and I had a lot of pars, you know, so, you know, we felt good about the way we played. We just had a couple of holes that we both played poorly on, and that drove our scores up a little bit.
You did
But
great.
anyway, I'll let you go. And
if you want to talk during the week, do you have my telephone number, right? You've had emails from me.
Yes, you sent me an email with that, and I'll do that. And
Brian, as I send you, if you come up here,
before had nothing to do with you. We're going to
And
sort that.
I'll second that. You
Okay,
just happened to be the person in
Brian,
the
if
middle.
you're,
It had nothing to do with you.
It had absolutely nothing to do with you, and we're going to sort it out right now.
Brian, one
all
thing
right.
I did say, you know, if you're coming to NIH or Walter Reed, let me know, because that's where I work, right at NIH.
Oh, all right, Herb. I saw that note that you put in the chat last time, and you know, I'll have to see what my quarterback says about going to NIH.
Right.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night.
Okay,
Hi,
guys.
Brian.
Right. Okay.
So, Rick, my reason?
Hold on a minute. We've got two people to lose here, and we'll go through them. So we can help. We'll give Brian a little push.
I did.
You did. Okay. Now, Jake, you've decided to stay on. Is there a reason for that?
Is Jake asleep?
No.
Yeah, because I've been at the brunt of your attacks myself. So
Right.
I heard you attack Ken
Right.
and Herb, and I want to hear the
Right.
same thing.
Well,
But you might want to turn off the recorder.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, let's turn it.
I'll tell you what.
Hold on. Let's turn off the